Hi, Chelsea. I'm so glad to have you with us today.
So glad to be here. We're excited to talk about some fun stuff.
Yes, and I love this episode because I'm always talking about health and the science behind it and the why. But something that I run into all the time with people I'm working with is when you want to be healthier, when we're being a little bit healthier, how do we get it in our life? And I actually, as we were getting ready to record this, I was thinking about it myself because I think sometimes people assume that because of what I do, that it's all so easy for me and I have it all planned
Yeah.
out and everything. But I was just actually sitting here thinking, how am I gonna make dinner tonight? And I've been working all day, and how do I get all these things in? So I'm excited for your advice for myself too. I'm looking
Yeah,
forward
it's going to be
to
a perfect episode because you can just ask all the questions that really will apply to anybody. So it's going to be a good time.
it. Great. Yes. So before we get into it, I just want to talk a little bit about you to introduce you to our audience. So, how did time blocking and meal planning help you in your own health journey and the space that you got in today?
Yeah, I actually, it's interesting because before I started the job that I have now, which my name obviously is Chelsea Joe, which you heard the introduction in the beginning, but I am the owner of ChelseaJoe.co, and I provide systems. I have four signature systems that we use basically, but one of them is a home management system and the others are for business owners and CEOs. But the home management system specifically was something that I crafted after I became a mom. And my health journey really started long before I became a mom. I had chronic strep throat for many years of my life from age 15 until about 21. And then I had fibromyalgia. And then I had a season of trauma in my life. And then I had irritable bowel syndrome. And I really used food and holistic care to really treat and heal me through that process. And that was fine and dandy until I became a mom. And then I realized, wow, that's all going to go out the window real quick because I am super busy. And so I had been working through all of that. I was a sign language interpreter, certified, nationally certified for about 20 years and did that. And then I was a single mom, got married. We had another kiddo. My husband's a firefighter and his rotation is all over the place. You know, he's gone for 50 hours and then he's home for 4 days, but that's never the same every week. It's not like Monday, Tuesday, dad's gone and then we have him the rest of the week. Like it doesn't work like that. Because obviously 2 on 4 off is only 6 days. So it just keeps like bumping throughout the week and around the clock. And I was losing my marbles, to be honest. I just was like, okay, but I was running an event-based business too. I did weddings, styled weddings, and did floral design with my mom. And so I was super busy, and I didn't want to have to sacrifice myself in that process. And I didn't want my health to take a hit because I had suffered with severe symptoms for a long time, and it my severe symptoms hit, like, I swear to you, the night of my wedding night. I My husband and I are both like, where the heck did this come from? Like, of course, that's when it would hit, when like,
The stress, yes.
yeah. Well, and I got married about a year after leaving a pretty abusive relationship. And I think having that peace and having the security of being married and being in a really solid and safe relationship, my body just started to finally relax and let go. And there were just so many things that I was dealing with. But I ended up figuring out some systems that would really help me. I did end up kind of closing up shop on that one business, but I kept interpreting. And then the pandemic came, and just before the pandemic had hit, I had started this podcast because I wanted to share those systems with people because they were helping me so much. People kept asking, how are you like dressed and have makeup on? And how are you like cooking real meals and not going through the drive through 24/7 and you're working out and like it looks like you're taking care of yourself. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm just doing this. Aren't you doing it? And they're like, absolutely not. What are you doing? And so that's where this whole journey that I'm on now started. And it really, honestly, my mission is to take women from overwhelmed to organized by using systems, and specifically a home management system. But there is this underlying goal for me to help women to be able to really show up and do their very best work in home and in business, whether or not that's working a 9 to 5 or being a stay-at-home mom or being a homeschooling mom or having a company that they run, whatever that looks like. We have passions that we want to do outside of being at home and all the things that that requires, right? And often the first thing that we take off of our responsibility list is taking care of ourselves. And then we end up really depleted in so many ways. And I saw that happen to myself and didn't want that to continue to happen. And I watch it happen all the time to other women. So that's where time blocking came from. That's where all of my systems were derived, was making sure I refused to lose myself in the process. And I had made so many gains with my health, and I really care a lot about the kind of food that we eat and the environment that we create in our home, the chemicals, the lack of chemicals, the toxins, everything, and what that was doing to me and to my kids. And so I had to have time for that. For me, it was non-negotiable, because it really goes against what I believe in to do it any other way. So I needed to create systems to have enough time to cook the food and prep the things and get to the grocery store and know what we're eating. And I, at the time, couldn't go through drive-through, was an option. It made me very sick. And so I had to figure it out, you know? And by way of that, I figured out some systems that made it easier.
Well, that's great. And I'm so excited to dive in. And I believe in everything you said. I love the
Mhm.
way you said it. It's just that we're told that we're just expected to go, 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 not
Yeah.
feel well. And when you're not feeling well and you're not able to do some of these things to help yourself feel better, you're not able to give to everyone else. And I think as moms, sometimes, particularly, we're conditioned to feel that way. So empowering people to be able to show up in work
Yeah.
and life and feel your best. And that's what I'm all
Mhm.
about too. So I'm so
Yeah.
glad
And
to.
I think that they all wear this badge of like honor because, I see it everywhere I go. It's like, I'm 15 cups of coffee deep, and it's fine that I'm in my house slippers and my bathrobe. And I mean, those things are fine, but like, is that really how you want to be? Or are we just subscribing to this idea that that's the way that it has to be because there's no other option? And so I'm just here to spread the word that there's definitely another option that you could
Yeah.
look into if you wanted.
Yeah. So let's dive into some ways to do it. So you mentioned time blocking. Can we start there?
Yeah. Yeah. So you can go on Pinterest or Google and really anywhere, YouTube. And you can go on into your podcast app and type in time blocking. I will tell you that if you type in time blocking into your podcast app, I will be the show. The Systemize Your Life podcast will be the show that shows up. But there's so many different things and different articles and different ways of time blocking. And I am biased. I think that my 5 block method that I teach is the most usable and versatile for women that are juggling a lot of things. At this point, we've had over 1,000 students go through the program, and tens of thousands of people actually use the method in their own way. And I've seen that it works for men, it works for women, it works for dads, it works for every kind of mom, it works for people that aren't moms, it works for college students. It really is this way of taking your life. So from the time you wake up until the time you go to bed, there's 5 time blocks that cover that entire span of your day. So you get up, and the last 2 time blocks of the day. So imagine you have your 5 fingers, if you hold them up, your thumb and your pinky are your first block and your last block of the day. Those are for you. Those are without kids. Maybe your spouse is involved, but that's before you give anything to anyone else. That is a time for, it's your morning block and your morning routine block, and then your nighttime routine block. And there might be more than a nighttime routine in there. There might be a date night in there. It might be something that you enjoy doing every evening. Maybe there's a journaling routine in there, or maybe it's 15 minutes long, or it's 2 hours long. And in different seasons of my life, that block has changed, but they're always there, right? Whether or not I sleep through my entire morning routine block today or not, it's still there. And it gives me these guide rails of, okay, this is like a parameter. Like, when you go bowling and the kids' bumpers pop up on the left and
Yeah.
the right, like you
Hmm.
can't you can't fall into the gutters here. You can be all over the place and maybe we knock down a pin or two, but we still knock down some pins. And so that's what these time blocks allow you to do, is to see, with like these guardrails up that this is how I'm moving through. And so as soon as you get done with that block, you immediately bump into the next one. So then if you look on your hand, that middle finger there is completely reserved for your work. There's not kids in it. It's 100% reserved for work. The other two, so your index finger and your ring finger, so those two are your AM block and your PM block, and they're fully focused on your home, your family, giving, serving, doing, working hard, and those other areas of your life that aren't your job. Now, for somebody that works a 9 to 5 with an hour commute on each end, that's 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., right? So that
Mhm.
is a huge work block, but that's okay. That means that those other 4 blocks are going to be really small, and we're going to stack a couple routines in there, maybe even just one. And it begins to take all of the guesswork out of the day. You start to formulate a little bit of a rhythm. And I think that's what people are missing. There's so many distractions, there's so many things to do. Everything's not simplified, everything's overly complicated. Too many choices are a terrible thing. It's like, terrible thing.
It is.
There's too
They
many
can
college
overwhelm
choices.
all
There's
of
too many junior high choices. There's too many high school choices. Like,
it.
stop. Just what happened to going to the local neighborhood school? Like, why are we not doing that anymore? Like, it's such a problem. I'm like, why are there 450,000 different like options for shoes that I could wear with this one outfit in my
I know.
closet? Like, I just need the pair of shoes. I'm like, let's move on with it. So simplifying what we do every day and when we do it, I think, is what time blocks allow us to do. It's the framework for everything that we need to do. And I build these out. Our time blocks are the same every day, but like, so say on Fridays, it's okay if you don't have a work block in there. Like sometimes I don't have a work block on Fridays, and sometimes I do. And sometimes I have a work block on Saturday when I don't normally, right?
Mhm.
So that's the gist of my time blocking method.
So do you do your time blocks like every week, or is it kind of just do you actually write them out, or do
Oh
you
yeah.
just okay,
Yeah.
so you
Yeah,
write them
they
out and
are.
just
So within my home management system, the first thing that we kind of go through is my hybrid method, which is time blocking in a paper planner paired with your Google Calendar, because nobody wants to walk around with a paper planner. We can't fit our whole life in a paper planner. There's
yeah,
too much writing, and
yeah.
we're not doing that, So it's a hybrid method. We put those two things together. So, um, yeah, I have a paper planner, and we put the 5 blocks down, and I sit down and we have a planning session. In my house, we call it our Sunday sit down. We go over a few real fundamental things, which that's another part of my home management system, is knowing what your fundamental needs are. And so we have the great 8. There's 8 things that we put in the Google Calendar, and I put them in my time blocks. I double dip them because they're non-negotiable. They are fundamental.
Okay.
And one of those fundamental needs is meal planning, prep, and prepping. That's like, it's on the calendar. We reserve 3 hours or so to plan it, to shop for it, to bring it home, to clean out the fridge, to put it back in. Like the whole shooting match can take me maybe 2 hours on a good weekend, on an easy weekend. So we've streamlined pretty much everything, and I made sure that, my husband sees the calendar, it's shared, and it runs like clockwork. And when life isn't running like clockwork because kids are throwing up and things are not working the way they're supposed to, that gives us an anchor and something that we know, okay, of the 8 fundamental needs, guess what? Date nights out, family funds out, cleanings out, not doing any of that. But what can we maybe get to? Like,
Mhm.
there's always something. And then when it's time to get back on track, because we're out of survival mode, which moms know that mode very well, especially when your kids are little, right? It's really hard. Even when we get sick as moms and we're, still having to do the pickup and the drop off because no one else is there to do it. It's a really great way to help us know, like, I'm kind of throwing some high level terms or some deep terms for you, pretty high level out here, that are bundled within this whole management system. But like throughout the day within those time blocks, every time I transition, there's a tidy cue, kind of a little asterisk with a TC for a tidy cue. And I know that that means I'm about to transition out of a space that I've been in, and I need to go tidy this up before I go into a new space, so that at the end of the day, when I turn around and look at my house, it doesn't look like a bomb went off. Because at 8 o'clock at night,
Yeah.
we're going to go scroll Netflix or go scroll our phone and ignore everything that we put all across the house, right? Which is not what I recommend doing in your nighttime routine block, but we do it sometimes. the point is to say is that we're exhausted, and the last thing that we want to do is go around and pick up our house. So when we're in that survival mode, and sometimes, especially if you're here wanting health tips, you've probably been in survival mode for a long time. You've probably been neglecting yourself for a long time, and house is probably one of the things that you feel like is draining you the most. And so all you need to do is really just put a home management system in place and take it out of your brain. 95% of the things that you're putting on your to-do list are things that are repeated every single week. Why are we still writing them down? Why have we not systemized and automated those things so that we don't have to think about them anymore? uh, it's pretty magical.
Yes, that's great. And I either see where you're too tired or where people are also like cleaning at 9 o'clock at night
Oh
instead of
yeah,
doing the time block, like the winding down. And then it's like, no, you
exactly.
you shouldn't be like running around cleaning your house. Your cortisol levels are going up. You need to wind down at this time.
Right. Yeah. So like you look at it from the perspective, like the science behind it, that is like, no, it's like a really good idea to unplug from your phones and like bring yourself down from the day so that your body can sleep the way that it's supposed to.
Yes, yeah. Well, one of the things that I see people struggle with the most, and I can admit that I have trouble with this too, is the meal planning. Because,
Hmm.
particularly women that work, you're busy all day, and then 5 o'clock hits, and you've maybe been working all day, and now it's like, oh no, I have to feed my family. I have to eat health. I want to eat healthy, but maybe I don't have the
This is my
energy to
favorite.
do that
Mhm.
now.
Everyone talks about this, like, what's for dinner? It's like the
Yes,
one question that moms hate the most. It's
it
like,
is.
what's for dinner? And
Yes.
I'm always, in any podcast episode, whenever I talk about this, I'm always like, if you are texting your husband when he's on his way home from work, asking him to drive through and get dinner more than one night a week, you need to put a system in place. If you're asking yourself after 4 o'clock at night, what am I going to cook for dinner tonight? You are hurting yourself, and it's so preventable with really easy things. And this is honestly one of the first systems that I created, because when I first got married, I was sitting on Pinterest every weekend trying to put very impressive things on the table for my new husband. And I was like, I literally just did Pinterest for an hour and a half, and I still don't have a list, and I still don't know what I'm cooking. I haven't even gone to the grocery store, let alone brought it home and put it in the fridge yet. Like, this is a mess. I
Yeah.
don't have time for this.
Uh-uh.
So that's when I very quickly was like, look, I recognized my brain is very mechanical, and I recognize patterns very quickly. I'm always looking for patterns. And I saw right out the gate, he loves these things all the time. The kids love these things all the time. They're asking for them, they love them. Now we can address later on whether or not they're healthy and how to make adaptations to them, right? But like just right now out of the gate, and this is one of the first podcast episodes that I put out. We have a blog post and a podcast for this that really dives deep into it. But high level, what the system is it's called a menu board meal planning system. So it consists of a board with clips on it that say Monday through Sunday. You could also do it on a refrigerator, but the gist of it is to have it on an index card that you take your five favorite family meals. It could be 10. The goal is to get somewhere between 10 and 20 of your family's favorite meals. And on the front of it, you write the name of it. On the back of it, it's what ingredients you need. And they should be really simple. We're talking like steak and potatoes and broccoli, and like we're talking really simple here, right? If it's pizza, great. Pizza and salad, awesome. Like whatever it is, let's just start with that and get those 5 meals, hang them up on the board, and then pull them down the next week and put them in. And you just start by asking your family, what are your favorite things that mom cooks? What are they? What are the things that you love the most? And then go do that a couple weeks in a row, and you'll build on them. But you'll notice that every time you ask them, they'll probably say tacos again. Like they're just going to keep telling you tacos. So keep making the tacos. Like, we overcomplicate it. And so it makes it really simple to go to your recipe box, like an old fashioned one,
Hmm.
open it up, pull out the stack of 15 cards and say, okay, I know, because I've already done my calendar for the week, that we have appointments on Tuesday and Thursday. I need quick meals. Tacos aren't quick, but pizza's really quick. And so you go through and you look at these strategically, you pop them up, you make your list based on those things, You head to the store, you bring them home, you put it in the fridge, and you're done. And so that's what we've been doing forever, for like ever. We just moved and our board's not hung up. And so I've been writing it on the dry erase board. And that does take more time because I'm erasing it every week and rewriting it every week.
Mhm.
So the cards work out really, really well. And then over time, you'll realize, wow, what was that thing that we used to eat that we really loved? And like, oh, it was, spaghetti squash and whatever. And it's neat to go back because we lose the ideas that we had. We forget what we cooked. And it's like, it also helps us to eat seasonally too. And my family's made a big shift recently into focusing on more local and regenerative meat and different things that are important to us. And so it kind of helps me to know, like, here's some seasonal things. Here's some things that we want to eat in this season, during the fall or the winter or the summer or whatnot, and be able to pull from that section. Um, and it's been super fun for the kids to get involved too. They love to pull out the cards and put them
Mhm.
up, and no one ever asks me anymore what's for dinner ever.
That's great. Yeah, I hate that question too. What's for dinner? It's like, oh no, like we got to think it through. So, what
Mm-hmm.
about the cooking aspect? Do you have any advice if you have your meals for people who are working through the day? When you're
Mm-hmm.
time blocking,
Yeah.
I do run into people that have trouble like with that meal prep time.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think that we all have the same 24 hours in a day. And when you
Yeah.
look at the woman that is helping herself heal through specific lifestyle choices, you get a plan and you're supposed to eat these types of things, or that you want to eat a certain way. You have a choice to either make sure that, and you're working a ton, and so you can't get in the kitchen at 4 o'clock and start your prep, right? You can't that's not an option. All of the stay-at-home moms and the work from home moms that I talk to and that I work with, I tell them you got to be in the kitchen by 4:30, period. Like, end of story. That's where we're at. That's where it has to start. And just peeling the clock back helps a lot. But if you're stuck and you can't, then you got to do a lot of prep beforehand. You got to do it on the weekends, and that's just what it is. And so that's your choice. Is we get to choose what we want our life to look like. And if you are making choices that inevitably put you in the drive-through line, that is what is going to happen over and over and over again until you decide to come back to the drawing board and say, I'm going to do this differently. And that's what's going to impact your health the most, is the decisions that you make with what you're going to do in on the weekends, right? And mainly that's for the person that's literally working like 9 to 5, has commute, has no time.
Hmm.
But even for the woman that's like, well, I'm not working all the time. I still feel like I don't have enough time. I still have to prep on the weekends. We do some solid meal prep. I focus. Um, I just turned 40. And so something happened in my brain where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm 40. And so I've really made an emphasis on changing the shape of my body through weightlifting. And so I have to make sure I get enough protein. I'm an under eater. I tend to not eat. I'm definitely not an overeater. I'm not an emotional eater. I don't eat. And so I have to make sure that that food is available. And because of so many years having IBS and not being able to have anything processed,
Hmm.
I would rather just not eat a processed carbohydrate. I would just not eat it. And so now I have to work really, really hard. And if the food's not ready to go for me, I'll just get really hungry. Um, that has a whole effect on hormones and like all things that I'm
Yeah, wait, that's
learning
what I was
that's
just saying.
not
We
good.
have to have a side conversation about this over here.
I have been told that this is not helping me. So I have to make sure that that food is available for me. It also, in doing that prepping on the weekend. So when I said one of the fundamental things that we put down is meal prepping, planning and prepping, that means that I know, like, I need to have some chopped sweet potatoes available in a Tupperware because I won't eat the crackers. So then I just won't eat. But I need the carbohydrates. So I need to have something in the fridge to be able to eat. And if it comes down to just like dinners, what kind of meals can you throw in the crock pot? Can you put in the instant pot? What can you outsource? Are there things that you can buy that are preemie, that are frozen, that are good? I mean, I had to have a season in my life that was like pretty hardcore Trader Joe's, and there's some quality options there. There's so many different things that you can do to not make the excuse of I don't have time rule
Yes.
your health.
Hmm. And I agree with you. If I what the weeks that I plan Sundays, that I take a few, and it's a few hours Sunday to really
Yeah.
think about, like, what are we going to eat this week? Our meals are so much better. So I'm with you. Like, I'm still gonna throw something together because, getting the vegetable in and the fiber and the protein, and those are all important to me with cooking. But they're
Mm-hmm.
sometimes just thrown together and basic, and maybe no one likes it, and it feels like, okay, there's something in front of you, where
Yeah,
it's like, whenever you're thinking about it, there are meals that everyone's like, oh, I'm happy, they taste good, we
yeah.
enjoy it. Just makes it so much easier. You may not want to do it at that time, but you feel like it sets your whole week up for success.
For sure. And it's like the number one thing that sets us back is what are we going to eat? And it's same thing for breakfast, same
Hmm.
thing for lunches. For lunches and for breakfast specifically. And you can even do this for dinner, honestly. I kind of have this like 3-3 rule where I look at the three main food groups that I want to have on everyone's plate, which is basically for dinners, I focus on a clean carb, a protein, and then I go to a vegetable, something green. Those are my 3 threes that I want. Um, I know that the main macro groups are not that, but that's what we focus on in our house, obviously, because of the types of meat and the types of oils that I'm cooking. I feel really good about the amount of fats that my kids are getting and that I'm getting, etc. But with breakfast, it's the same thing. I want a good clean carb and a protein, and then I look to fruit, right? So we're heavy on the fruit in the morning, and we're heavy on the green in the evening. And that's what we feel really good about right now. Lunch is pretty similar, it's fruit and vegetable kind of mixed up with a clean carb and a good protein. So sometimes, like, really strapped, I just go to the grocery store and I'm like, I need 3 breakfast proteins, 3 breakfast carbs, and 3 breakfast fruits. Get them in the cart. And I do that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I get out of the store because that's going to serve us, all of us, for the whole week. If you got a huge family, you might need to do 4 or 5 of each of those three.
Hmm.
But I feel like the 3 threes, and it's super easy in the shopping cart too, because it's like, here's my 3 breakfast proteins, my 3 lunch proteins, and my 3 dinner proteins done. Um, and then I just get enough to make sure that we're feeding everybody. I've done it long enough to be able to eyeball that. We make our same little route, and I can whip up a meal out of that. Like, my kids are so fine with some ground beef and whatever vegetable we have on hand, and then a sweet potato. Like that, they're so fine with that. And sometimes it is hot dogs, but they're the bison hot dogs, like sometimes it's not a great meal, but I know that even with that, like 3 threes in my back pocket, we're still gonna have a pretty great week.
Yes, and you're thinking about it. Like, I think the key takeaway is to really think it through beforehand and always be ready. Always, I hear you say over and over, like, know what you're gonna do. So
Mm-hmm.
it's always knowing, it's not reacting, but being proactive and
For sure.
knowing what you're gonna do.
Because here's the problem that no one ever teaches a mom is, like, we literally have a whole ship to run, like
Hmm.
a huge ship to run. And I actually come from a really conservative and faith-based background, which all my life was, had really kind of interpreted this idea of leadership to be off of my plate, but that's actually 100% false and not accurate at all. There's so much leadership within my role, and
Hmm.
you can't lead people even to a kitchen table, let alone through a clean house or knowing where they're going all week long. Like, my husband's super plugged in. He's super plugged in and he still has no idea sometimes,
Yeah.
It's
No,
like
yeah.
it's not his skill set.
Yes.
And like, and so he's like, I've been gone for 2 days at the fire station. I'm like, I know. But so, like, I really think it's so important for us to, like, pick up the baton and lead well and be that CEO of our homes and the motherhood and all the aspects, whatever that looks like. And, you know, there's so many things that we can talk about, but I think knowing and having a plan in place is a huge part of it. And then also reducing the options, reducing the clutter, reducing the stimulation, reducing the overwhelm. Like, don't take your kids to 4 different sports activities a week. Like, let's bring it back until we get our lives in under control. My girls just wanted to start gymnastics and they were like, let's go twice a week. I'm like, no, we'll go once a week. And if you love it for 3 months and you still get your homework done after school and your beds are still made every morning, like, we can't lose sight of what's really important here to go do all of the fun things. So I'm the fun killer in the house. Just kidding. I have a lot
Yeah,
of
I
fun.
think that's
But like,
everyone.
I think it's important for somebody to always be at the helm and really be a beacon for keeping our lives in order. And that's what systems will do.
Yes, yeah, and it is yeah, it's just so important. Just important to bring it back, to have that grounded center place. And another place that I see a lot of people struggle with routine and getting it in is exercise. Do you have any, like, in your time blocks, do you recommend a good way to exercise? I know for me it was, I remember, like, it's such an interesting, like, psychological thing. So I was doing yoga at a point. I've had different times where I prioritize different exercises, and that season I was doing yoga every day and it was working out great. And then we were having construction done on our house, and I would put my yoga mat where they needed to walk through. That was just like where I was doing it, and the construction people would be walking through. So, like, I couldn't move my mat to another place in our house, but that wasn't where I was set up, and so I stopped doing it. And it's like all I had to do was move the yoga mat and do it in a different, but
Mm-hmm.
for me it was like it broke my routine, and so it
Yeah.
broke the pattern, and then you get out of the pattern, and I think that can be really tricky.
Yeah, it can. And habit formation and routines are happening in your life, whether or not you think they are or they aren't. They probably just, they're either working for you or they're not working for you. You are habitually, everyone's like, oh no, I'm not really big into that routine thing. I'm like, no, you are routinely doing what you're doing. You're
Mhm.
doing the same chaos every single day. We just need to change what the things are that you're doing and do different things every single day. And it is hard to craft that. But I think when it comes to exercise, obviously it's a huge part of my life. And there have been seasons when it just hasn't worked and I'm trying to fit it in different places. But it comes down, for me, it's one of the great eight. It's one of my fundamental needs. And so I put a marker on it for me for many years, was 3 times pretty intense workout a week. And I have a little bit more time freedom right now that my kids are a little bit older and they're in school full time. So I can get to the gym 4 to 6 times a week right now. And I see with my husband as well, with it being a fundamental need, with our home management system, it goes in the Google Calendar and then it goes in the paper planner and it gets put in the Google Calendar right after our appointments for the week. It's very specific. It, all 8 of the fundamental needs get put in before anything else outside of appointments. Like, we have to be at this dental appointment, right? Like, we can't just go to the gym when we're supposed to be at a doctor's appointment. Like, the appointments are important. Appointments for the dog, the pets, the kids, husband and wife, anything that goes in first, obviously, and then fundamental needs come after that. And I think whenever you make the shift to this is a fundamental need and I'm putting it on the calendar, it doesn't really matter where you do it or what you're doing. It's like, this is a thing that I'm doing. I'm setting aside an hour for it. Whether there's construction workers here or
Yeah.
not, it comes down to being committed to putting it on the calendar and prioritizing that over other things. Now, again, I'll go back to the same example because it's so relevant in my life, is when the kids get sick. That's one of the things to go. Um, and right now, I do have really serious health goals, fitness related. And so it kind of hasn't been one of the things that gets put off the list, but the cleaning has. And so we kind of rotate with what is more fundamental than it used to be. And I think that's always going to ebb and flow. And every 3 months or so, my husband and I sit down and evaluate, are these still fundamental in our life? Do we want to keep prioritizing them? And the answer has been yes on the grade eight,
Mhm.
for 5 years,
Oh
over and
wow,
over and over
yeah,
again.
that's
It's the
great.
same fundamental needs.
Needs.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you do the fundamental needs just with your husband, or do you put your whole family sit down together to create them?
We did it together, because my girls were too young at the time, and they will never know. I don't think when they're older, they're going to be like, Mom, why is our family like this, but other families aren't? And then we'll introduce them to what it is. But right now, they just know it to be their life, that
Mhm.
once a week we have family fun together, but they have no idea that it's family fun night. They just think that this is the culture of our home. But
Mhm.
Blaine and I are really intentional about saying, what night this week are we going to do something really engaged with our kids that doesn't have tech in it?
Mhm.
And sometimes it's a movie night if like that's all we can fit in, but we
Yeah.
try and make it special. So we did it together. The reason that this system came to be is because when I first got married, some weeks were amazing and my husband was super happy. And I wanted to see that every week. And I was like, tell me what worked this week. Tell me why this is happening. So I was trying to recognize patterns. I was trying to figure it out. And I was like, this is what I need because this week was train wreck, and here's
Yeah.
why. And so it was whiteboard session after whiteboard session in our bedroom. And eventually I saw a pattern in these 8 things. If we get these 8 things done, no matter what, we're going to have a fantastic week.
Okay.
And so that's what we try and replicate every single week.
That's great. You did bring up tech, so I have to ask,
Yeah.
how does tech fit in? Because I feel like that railroads. So I can even have it happen to me where, it's like you're in this and then you get that email and then that email comes and it's like,
Mhm.
oh, wait, now I have to respond to that email. Oh, wait, now I'm doing this. And now and it's so distracting. So
It's super distracting.
do
It's
you
so
have points where you
distracting.
set the phone aside?
Yeah. And honestly, I think we pretty much try and live our life without our phone more than with it. There's so much to talk about here within the CEO world, like the examples that you just gave and how to be distraction free there. I think one thing that is applicable to almost everybody, no matter what they're doing in their lives, is just being very aware of how much time is spent on social media. The apps are designed to be addictive. Even our inboxes are designed to be addictive at this point. And I use social media. My business is on social media, but I fully delete it off of my phone often.
Mhm.
And I'm unapologetic about it. I will have this like gripping anxiety. I always feel like like I'm not getting enough done, and lo and behold, every single time it's linked to how much time I've spent on my phone. And so when I delete the things that make my phone enticing off of it, I don't even know where it is most days. I don't know what room I put it in. And we really do. Our oldest is 11, and we're trying really, really hard to just not even make it a part of what we do. Know how to use the tool because it's fantastic. It's how
Mhm.
I'm connected with you, right?
Yeah.
The reason why our phones are a distraction is because of the internet. And so I try and do most of my interneting from my computer, and then be really, really careful with what I put on my cell phone. So I have very specific emails on my phone that I don't have to see all the things from my company. I can only see it from the laptop. And yeah, we try really, really hard. We don't we for the kids, there's no tech upstairs. My husband and I are trying to implement it for us where the phones stay downstairs. So just creating a culture and an environment in our house where it doesn't cause the distraction, because it's like a really big problem. It's a huge problem that we have to, in our home, we have to fight against all the time.
Yeah. I've been trying to, I was listening to like a talk about not getting up and checking your emails. Like, you just get up and I literally will be in bed and looking through my emails
Yeah.
before I even get out of bed sometimes, which please don't do that, everyone. That's not the best way to wake up. So I'm trying to cut it off, but get up, yeah, so get some sunshine, get your cortisol levels up. But
Mhm.
getting some of those things in place because I do think it's a huge time suck, it's a huge distraction, and then you're not actually getting the things you want to get done because now you're on that, it's just constantly grabbing your attention.
Yeah, I know. And I think my biggest tip from word go that I really haven't talked about in a long time, I feel like, is plugging your phone in on the other side of the room when you
Hmm.
go to bed at night. Just getting it off of your nightstand is huge for that reason. And every
Yeah.
once in a while, well, more times than not, unfortunately, my phone is on my nightstand. It's the
Yeah.
first thing that you grab in the morning. I'm like, that is so obnoxious. So we are, but the thing is it's like, I don't know what alarm I want to use, or like we got to go
That's
back
yeah,
to
I
old
know. That's
fashioned,
why
like what are we
yeah.
doing?
And I don't do it at night because I don't want the blue light. Like, the blue
Hmm.
light can stimulate
Yeah.
your brain and you want your cortisol. So I'm really good about, shutting off at night. But then, you're up and it's like, oh, what do I have to do today? And then your alarms go off
Yep.
and you grab it and,
Yeah. It's
and
a whole
try.
thing.
Yes, it is. You need to start off with a good morning routine. So everyone get your good morning block in there
Yep.
and
Yep.
get
For sure.
everything. Well, you've been giving us such a wonderful information. It's been really helpful. And if can you just let everyone know where they can reach out to you if they're like, I need this, I need schedules.
Yeah. So it's chelseajo.co, CHELSIJO.co. But you can also just type Systemize Your Life into your podcast streaming app and you'll find me. We have a Facebook group where people can come and really talk about what is happening on the podcast, what they learned, share pictures of what you're implementing, try and sketch out your time blocks, and we'll support you. Also, Instagram, just Systemize Your Life will help you get connected with me, and probably the links down in the show notes.
Yeah, that's great. And I'll link everything for this in the show notes so you have it.
Yeah,
Yes. Well,
thanks so much for having me.
yeah, thanks for being here today.